Hello and welcome back to week 4 of Python class. Let's start off by creating a new program. Go to the week 4 folder and as usual just create a new program and name it week 4 loops. I'll give you a few 30 seconds to create that file. So today we will be learning about if loops, also called conditional statements, and for loops and while loops. These are used in every single coding language. Now that you've probably created the file, I'll just tell you that these comments on my screen, they're here just for my information and just for you to better understand what is going on. But if you want to copy it, you also can. So, let's start off with conditional statements. Conditional statements, as I already said before, are also called as if statements. A conditional statement is basically performing or completing an action based on a condition. So, for example, if I say, if the temperature reaches 90 degrees today, then I'll eat ice cream. So it is implying that if it is less than 90 degrees, then I won't eat ice cream. In Python, we use if statements to perform tasks like these. To go more in depth for if statements, the most basic type of if statement is if, expression, and then a statement. The expression is a Boolean value or a true or false value. Like for example, when you want to eat that ice cream, you have to check the temperature to make sure that it is above 90 degrees. So the condition is satisfied and you begin to eat the ice cream. And then the statement is a line or multiple lines of code where you will be performing an action such as printing something out or adding numbers together. If the expression is true, then the statement will be executed. If the expression is not true, then the statement will not be executed, but rather an else or elif. But we'll get more into those later. And also, in between the if expression, there has to be a colon. Otherwise, then it will show an error. Let's try a quick example. Let's type out x equals 0. If x equals 0 and y equals 5, then if x equals y, and then make sure to put their colons every single time as it'll automatically indent for you. And the indentation is necessary. Print. We're just going to do something basic, just print, yes. And then we'll run. And then you'll see that nothing shows up because this statement, this expression, is not true because x is actually less than y. But you see, if we switch y around with x, then yes will appear. See, look, here we are. And here is the if statement, here's the expression, and then once the expression is true, then it will print yes, which is the statement. But as we saw before, if the expression is not true, then it'll just skip whatever is given here, and then it'll just continue to the next line. In Python, it doesn't just have to be with numbers, it can also be using words. So you can also use the if statement for if AUL in grout, then remember to put the colon, print yes. This is basically saying if AUL is in the word grout, then you should print yes. And then once you run it, you'll also appear yes. And yes is showing up 2 times because we still haven't commented this block out. But if you want to, you can. Okay. And then Also, instead of just being phrases in a word, you can also look at lists. The list is basically like any other word, a list. Like, for example, if you're given 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's a list. And in Python, lists must be in these brackets. So it doesn't have to be in the expression itself, but you can have lists already set as variables. But in this case, we'll be creating a list in the expression itself, which is perfectly fine. So if QUUX in foo, in bar, and boz, make sure to put the colon, because if you don't put the colon, then you'll just end up having error and the if statement won't work at all. Then you must print yes. So you can use if statements for multiple things, for any value at all. Now in if statements, you don't have to just print one thing out. You can print multiple things out, like multiple lines of long code. So let us type out something in a list. If baby shark do and do, and then colon, and then you can print out that. Okay, and then print out every line is executed in this code. And then if we run it, you see that it doesn't show up because mommy is not in the list of baby shark do. But if we, instead of mommy, if we put do, and if we run it, then we'll see both of those lines are printed right after the other. So how this works is that print will be first it checks if the statement is true, if this expression is true, and then once that is true, it'll print out the first statement, and then after it prints out the first statement, it'll check if this is also in the if loop or if it is outside. I will get a little more into that in a minute, but then it'll print this one. So what I meant by if it is inside or not inside, then let's try it out by moving the print statement outside so it is not in the if statement. Because as you see, this is where indentation is extremely important in if statements and any loop in general. So if we change this back to mommy or mom, and if we run it, you see that even though that this if statement is not true, it still prints out this line because it is outside of the if statement. So the expression does not matter in this case at all. But if we indent it, then it matters. So as you see, indentation is really important in if statements. And to simplify compound statements, I'll just give a quick example. So if you have multiple statements, such as when it reaches 90 degrees, I'm going to eat ice cream, go to the swimming pool, and go to the movies. So that's basically kind of like this. If mom is in the list, then I'll be printing this and be printing this. And another major rule in if statements, and a key rule, is the indentation. And the indentation is basically used to define the compound statements. So we'll be looking at another type of compound statements, which is basically a if loop in the if loop, which is also called nesting if you want to use Python language. So let's type if foo in foo fa fum, then we would print yes, but after that you say if 10 is greater than 20, print 1, and then you would say print, this is a little complicated, but I will explain it a lot more after finish coding this. And then if 10 is less than 20, then we will print 2. And then we will print end of outer condition. You can always pause this video if we're going too fast. And then print after the condition. So instead of fun, I'll just you can keep it as fun, but to make a little more sense, I'll say inner condition. Okay, so here, let's just go through over the logistics. So if foo is in this list, which it is, it'll print yes. So, because if foo is all of this, then it'll print every single thing because this is basically true. So, it will print yes. And then if 10 is greater than 20. Is 10 greater than 20? It isn't. So it will not print 1, but instead it'll end up printing inner condition because it is outside of this expression. So print inner condition will still be printed. And then we'll move to the next line, which is if 10 is less than 20, which it is, it'll print 2. And then after that, it'll print end of outer condition because it is out of the expression. And then print after the condition will always be printed because it's not part of the if statement. So let's run that really quickly. And then you'll see here, inner condition, yes is printed, inner condition is printed, 2, and then end of outer condition after the condition. So that's basically in a nutshell of loops, and we'll probably get a little more into nested loops later in the video. Also, I am commenting out my code along the way so this side doesn't just have too much code. So if you want, you can just comment by using hashtags. If not, we can get along with the video, or you can just pause where you are right now. So if you're using else statements, so in an if statement, sometimes you want to evaluate a condition and take one path if it is true, but specify an alternative path if it is not. This is accomplished with the else clause. So for example, if it is 90 degrees, I will eat ice cream, go to the movies, and go to the pool. But if it is anything below or over, I will go to the amusement park. So else statements are really useful in any coding language. So let's use an example using else statements. So if x is equal to 70, then create a statement if x is less than 50, then we will print x is small. You can also print anything you want, but I think these will be what's printed will help you in the long run. And then else, it doesn't need a condition. Else never has a condition. So basically, if x is less than 50, the else statement will basically take everything which is not in that range of the expression. Or if we change it to if x is equal to 50, then the else statement will be everything which is like if x is 49, 48, 100, it'll get the else value of everything else. So let's change that back to less than, and then let's type print x is large. And then here, let's run this. And then it'll say x is large because we obviously know that 70 is greater than 50. And so because we know that, and because the computer processes that it'll be printed in the else statement. I also realized that some of you might be getting errors because in the first code, I believe we used X and Y, so because the same variable is being used twice in this code, it'll show an error. So you should probably change the X or comment it out or just change the variable name to whatever you like. Yeah. If that's not a problem, then we'll be moving along with the code and learning about elif statements. Elif statements is basically, it's similar to else statements, but it also has a condition. So people use if statements, elif, else statements. Because you cannot use if. There can only be one else statement in the entire block of if statements. But else statements you can use as many times if you want. So for example, if you're calculating grades, you can say if x is equal to 90, and then print blah blah blah, and then elif x is equal to 80, elif x is equal to 70, and so on and so forth. Because elifs you might want to print a specific statement or do a specific action rather than just having else. So let's print out something. Name equals Bob. Actually, let's name him Joe. And then if name is equal to Joe, then if name, there's something specific in loop any loop. If you're assigning especially in if statements, if you're wanting to check if a variable is equal to value, then you will have to use equals, not just equals, because if it's just equals, that means you're assigning a value. So it has to be equals, Fred, and then colon, print, hi Fred, and then elif. So this is basically saying that if it is not Fred, there's another option available. For name equals Xander. Remember to put the colon. Print. Hi, Xander. You can do another elif. Elif name is equal to Joe. Then print hi Joe. And we can do another, instead of else statements, you can have as many elif statements as you want. But let's just end it off here and just put else, print, IDK who you are. So let's run that and let's see what's printed. See, it prints hi Joe because here it took the expression, and then if name, here it's the variable, and then it would check through here first, is this true? Joe is not equal to Fred, so it'll skip that, and then it'll go to here, the elif statement, which is basically like an if statement and just a different name. Okay, now that's enough with if statements. Let us move on to loops, which are even more exciting and more useful. A for loop is used for iterating over a sequence. So let's just do a quick example. Fruits is a list, and then in that list there will be apples, apple, banana, and cherry, and then for X in fruits. You also need the colon in for loops too. and then you would print X. So let's run that, and then it'll print apple, banana, cherry. So basically what it's doing is X is a variable which is being created in the for loop, so its initial value will be 0, and in lists it's always, the first value is not equal to 1, but it's equal to 0. So 0, 1, 2. So for X in fruits, what it's basically saying is that for 0 in fruits, it'll print apple, and then it'll go to banana, and then cherry. So it'll be printing all these three in this for loop. So it's basically used for iterating over a sequence. Or you can also say for X in banana, I hope I spelled that right, print X. So if you run that, it'll print out every single letter in the word of banana. Breaks are something which are pretty important in for loops too, where basically you break a loop so it does not keep going on and on and on, and you'll just stop whenever you want it to stop. So here, let's use the same fruits equals, you can just keep the same lists from the previous if you want, but I will actually just copy paste it. If you want, you can just keep it like that, and then say for X in fruits, and then if X equals, this is also a nested loop because it's if it's an if statement in a for loop, which is also called nested. And then if X is equal to bananas, then break. And here you will see when you run it. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to print, but print X, and then now you run it, and then it'll print apple and banana. So it'll continue in your loop, and then it'll skip the item from a list and go to, it uses break to break a loop so it does not keep going on. So basically apple, and then it'll stop right at banana. It'll still run it, but it will stop right then and there. And there's another companion of break, which is continue. You can use continue and break both in your same code. Here we will use the same list, so I might as well just copy paste it. Or if you didn't want to create every single time, just use the same one. You can say, and then for X in fruits, let us use the example of banana again. If X equals bananas, banana, and then continue. Oh, whoops, I spelled that wrong. Continue, and then print X. Let's check this out. We'll print apple and cherry. So using continue in your loops, this is also a loop to skip an item from a list and go to the next. So it will just skip banana. So it'll say apple, and then it'll look back at the code and then say if X equals to banana, continue. So continue basically just means go to the next one. It's kind of like a Uno card. You know how you have the skip? You just skip and then go to the next person's turn. And then also these are pretty important in any for loops. And there's also something called the range function. And the range function, I won't give an example because it's pretty simple, but the range function returns a sequence of numbers starting from 0. Remember, it's always from 0 by default, and increments by 1. And these are all set by default. You can always specify them, but 0 will always be this will always be the first number, not 1, and ends at a specific number. So, for example, if you type range 6, that means it'll give you the values from, I'm just notes, you don't have to type these in, or you can write as a comment, but if range 6, and then it'll range the values from 0 to 5, giving you 5 numbers, but it's always starting from 0, so make sure that's extremely important, otherwise it'll go a little wacky than you imagine. And for loops always make use of an else statement, but a bit differently. The else keyword, and that ranges, they're used in anything. So here let's give an example of a nested loop now. As I told you, I'll get more into detail with nested loops here. Also, if you ever need these, I can always just share them with you. If your teacher can just email me or just ask me, I can always share this program with you if you want. So let's continue on the lesson. We're almost done, so hang in there. Nested loops. So they also make use of else in for loops. The else keyword in a for loop specifies a block of code to be executed when the loop is finished. So aka after the for loop is done, the else block is executed. Nested loops are more complex, but are helpful in real-world applications. So this might be a little confusing, so I'll give you guys time to digest it as well. So here is bread, big and tasty, and then it's back to fruits, so I'll just copy paste that in there. For X, an adjective, and then for Y in fruits, print X, I. So basically let's just start off here. It's declaring X. X is the variable which has not been assigned to anything yet. So ADJ, which is this list, will be filling in these values. So let's just give an example. For red, because now red is the first value in ADJ. So for red, so X is now equal to red, and then for Y in fruits. Fruits, the first word is apple. So here you see red apple. And then until this entire list is done, red will still stay the same. So the adjective will still stay the same until the entire list of fruits is completed. So that's why you see here there's 3 reds, 3 bigs, and 3 tasties. That is because in this for loop, it's nested that way. And so for loops are used in multiple applications and can be used anywhere. Congrats guys, you're almost done. We have just one more loop we're gonna go over, and then you'll be free to go and just practice as much as you want. So our last one will be while loops. While loops are used to execute a block of statements repeatedly until a given condition is satisfied. And when the condition becomes false, the line immediately after the loop in the program is executed. So let's just do a quick example. So let us do count equals 0, 0, and then while, you can do space if you want, while count is less than 3. Make sure to put the colon. While also needs colon. So while count is equal to count, is equal to count plus 1. Print hello there. So basically what is happening is that count is first 0, and then while count is greater than 3, if it's greater than equal to, that would mean difference. So if while count is greater than 3, meaning that if once it reaches anything greater than 3, like 4, 5, 6, then the while loop will stop. So while 0, it'll first increment to count, so that now count equals 1, and then it'll print hello there, and then since now count is equal to 1 because of that incrementation here in this statement, since count is now equal to 1, it'll check if that expression is true, which it is. So then it will increment again, so now it is equal to 2, and then you'll print hello there again. And then now that count is equal to 2, it will go here again, and then increment to 3, and then print hello there, then go back to the while, and then that'll keep going on until it is greater than 4, until that is greater than 3, which is basically 4. And so this is what I mean by when the expression is false, the while statement will just stop. So while statements are actually used very much in this industry, and they're somewhat similar to if and for loops because they also use else statements. And also in while loops you can put for loops and if statements inside these loops, or in other words, nested. So that's it for this class. I hope you had fun. Hope you learned a lot. And I'll see you next week, and hopefully you're able to learn a lot. So thank you.